Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. We begin in Edmonton, where Bradley Barton has been sentenced for the killing of Cindy Gladue. Gladue was found dead in a bathtub in Bradley Barton's Edmonton hotel room just over 10 years ago. Edmonton police charged Barton just days later, but he was acquitted of first-degree murder in 2015. In 2019, the Supreme Court of Canada ordered a new trial, and in February, Barton was convicted of manslaughter. John Murray reports on that decision.
Today, Bradley Barton was sentenced to 12.5 years for the horrific assault and killing of Cindy Gladue. Alberta Court Justice Stephen Hillier said Barton had an intolerable level of blameworthiness. He failed to get medical help and misled investigators. Hillier said some of Barton's actions were deliberate, like blaming co-workers and hiding a towel. Barton's defense argued those lies were made up in a panic, but the judge wasn't having that, saying his guilt was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Crown prosecutors were seeking an 18 to 20 year sentence, while the defense argued Barton only deserved 5 to 9 years. Barton will serve 11 years, 7 months after credit for time served. John Murray, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Manitoba RCMP have revealed details of an investigation into sexual abuse at the Fort Alexander Residential School in Saugeen First Nation. More than a decade ago, the RCMP's major crime services began gathering information to determine what took place following allegations of sexual abuse at the former school. A year later, a criminal investigation was launched. Throughout it, officers spoke to or interacted with more than 700 people from across North America. With more, here's Daryl Stranger.
While the RCMP does not normally comment on ongoing investigations, they felt this time it was in the public's best interest to provide information. Now, the Fort Alexander Residential School is in operation from 1905 until 1970. Investigators traveled to Ottawa to review available archive records to identify anyone involved. Investigators also searched the Manitoba archives to gather further historical information. Now, 75 witnesses and victim statements were obtained by police, and as a result, an investigative court package was sent to prosecution services to provide advice regarding charges. Now, Manitoba RCMP said this is the only investigation they have ongoing regarding residential schools in the province. I did reach out to RCMP headquarters asking if there were any other investigations like this, but I did not hear back from them by our airtime. Now, First Nations leaders and organizations have also been in contact with the RCMP, including the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs and the Southern Chiefs Organization. Saugeen Chief Derek Henderson did provide the following statement. Violation of the privacy rights of those involved in this investigation will not only cause further trauma to everyone involved, but also potentially compromise this highly sensitive investigation. Now, no charges have been laid as of yet, and the investigation is still ongoing. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
They went to a hospital in Quebec and never returned. Members of the Atikamekw, Innu, and Anishinaabe nations recently met for a week of commemoration for a tragedy they all have in common: their deceased and missing children. This is a story by Shushan Bacon, read by Tom Fenario.
Happy Birthday is usually sung during a celebration, but not this time. In this case, Viviane Echaquan Nikwe is singing for her sister Loriana Echaquan. Loriana was born in 1973, but after being transported by plane to a hospital from her remote community of Manawan, she died without the accompaniment of her parents.
Parce que quand ma sœur est décédée, j'avais 12 ans. Puis ma mère, elle disait, nous a demandé au dispensaire. C'est là qu'ils ont appelé pour l'annoncer, la mauvaise nouvelle. Ils ont dit que bébé Chacun est décédé.
Dozens gathered at a traditional campsite for the Atikamekw Nation to remember children who went missing or died during the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Quebec. The circumstances are often similar to what Echaquanikwe describes. A child gets sick in a remote community, is taken elsewhere without a parent, then never returns. Many families never saw a body or a burial. Pierre-Paul Nikwe has two brothers who went missing in the late 50s. As toddlers, they went to a hospital and then never came back. Despite this somber occasion, Pierre-Paul is happy to see everyone who answered the call to attend this gathering.
On a une association qui est l'association Awashek, les petits êtres de lumière, on participe, mais l'événement il a été fait à titre par des familles qui se sont engagées personnellement. C'est séparé de l'association Awashek, mais on travaille ensemble.
This sharing circle is made of family members who have lost a loved one. In the middle, they deposit objects in honor of the children. In 2017, the story of many of these children came out during the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women National Inquiry. Without the knowledge of their parents, some children were simply placed with non-Indigenous families once they recovered from their illnesses, which leaves doubts in Echaquanikwe's mind about what really happened to Loriana.
Une chance que j'ai eu courage qu'on fait des démarches de chercher ma sœur Loriana parce que c'est sa fête aujourd'hui, Loriana.
It wasn't just the families that made the trip. Yann Lafrenière is Quebec's Indigenous Affairs Minister. He put the flag of Quebec at half-mast. More concretely, Quebec recently adopted Bill 79. It authorizes access to medical files for the families of missing or deceased Indigenous children that were admitted to a hospital. According to Lafrenière, the estimate of missing children is at least 200. A meeting of families from the Awashak Association will take place in Quebec next September after the law comes into force.
Moi, comme père de famille de deux jeunes filles, si mes enfants disparaissent en allant chercher des soins de santé, est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose qui va combler ma rage ou ma tristesse ou mon inquiétude aussi de savoir est-ce que mes enfants sont encore vivants? Si oui, sont où? On n'en fera jamais assez, c'est clair, mais il faut commencer à quelque part.
AFN Regional Chief Gislain Picard says that they will continue to push for resources to bring as much closure as possible for the affected families.
Par expérience, il va toujours falloir rappeler le gouvernement sur les attentes que ces familles-là ont. Et pour nous, c'est ça notre rôle. C'est pas quelque chose qu'on veut imposer. Donc, c'est important aussi pour nous de savoir comment les gens se sentent.
For now, Echaquanikwe and the other families will take all the help they can get to find their sisters, their brothers, their daughters, or their sons.
Moi, je crois à ça, qu'ils vont continuer à faire des recherches de ma sœur. Mais pas juste ma sœur, tout le groupe, la famille, toutes les personnes qui sont ici.
A story by Shoshan Bacon, APTN National News, Lac-de-Selle, Quebec.
Mary Simon is the new Governor General. That story and more coming up. Welcome back. Canada's 30th Governor General has been sworn in. Mary Simon is the country's first ever Indigenous Governor General. And in order to properly mark the occasion, Ottawa pulled out the stops to indigenize the ceremony. Our Lindsay Richardson was there.
By the light of an Inuit kulik and the beat of an Anishinaabe drumming circle, Mary Simon of Kuujjuaq, Quebec, was officially sworn into office as Governor General.
Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Mary May Simon.
It's a history-making move, and for Simon, an opportunity to make an official introduction.
Today is an important and historic day for Canada, but my story to these chambers began very far from here. I was born Mary Jeannie May in Arctic Quebec, now known as Nunavik. My Inuk name is Ningiukarlak, and Prime Minister, it means bossy little old lady.
Swearing in of a Governor General is Canada's oldest continuing tradition. There was typical fare, like the presentation of the Callers of Office, the inspection of the Royal Guard, and the firing of a 21-gun salute. But Monday was in many ways a day of firsts. The first opened by an Inuk performer. It was also the first time a Governor General opened her inaugural speech in Inuktitut, Simon has had a storied political career so far, but her experience as an Inuk woman raised in Quebec is what she feels set the stage for this career-defining moment.
What I value most about my upbringing was my parents teaching my siblings and I how to live in two worlds, the Inuit world and the non-Inuit southern world. This foundation of core values has both served and shaped me throughout my life, and I believe helped me get to the important turning point as a young girl when I stopped being afraid. It took time before I gained the self-confidence to assert myself and my beliefs in the non-Indigenous world. But when I came to understand that my voice had power and that others were looking to me to be their voice, I was able to let go of my fear.
Mary Simon's appointment as Governor General is historic, but not unanimously accepted. She doesn't speak French, and Canada's official languages watchdog has received hundreds of complaints to that effect. They are promising an investigation, and Simon, in turn, is promising to put in the work towards proficiency.
En tant que gouverneur général, je m'engage à respecter les normes éthiques les plus élevées. Sometimes I have a little trouble pronouncing, but I'm learning.
Simon will work with a tutor at Rideau Hall to improve her grasp of the language. Despite the opposition, the Prime Minister feels Simon will be Canada's key player when it comes to building bridges between nations.
Your Excellency, you remind us that true leadership is not measured in the honours or distinctions stacked up behind someone's name, although today you take on yet another title among many. Rather, true leadership is measured in what you do for those around you. It is measured in an ability to reach out and build a brighter future for all, not just for a lucky few.
Mary Simon lists climate change, mental health services, and the continued searches of residential school sites among her priorities for when Parliament resumes in the fall. However, it's strongly rumored her first act as Governor General will be to dissolve Parliament so that a federal election can be called sometime this August. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Leaders of national Indigenous organizations had a front row seat at the Governor General installation. APTN's Brett Forrester caught up with them after the ceremony.
Natan Obed felt a rush of pride as he watched Mary Simon take the Governor General's oath of office.
I was so proud, not just for Inuit, but also for First Nations and Métis as well, and all Canadians.
Obed is the president of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami, a position Simon held twice in the early 2000s. He worries the expectations placed on her as the first Indigenous head of a colonial state may be too high. But he thinks the veteran diplomat, administrator, and politician is up to the task.
As somebody who's gone through the constitutional repatriation talks, who's been an Inuk leader for the better part of 40 years, she understands to her core the way in which Canada has abused human rights, has been a colonial institution.
David Chartrand reacted the same way as he watched the new Governor General emerge from the Senate.
Pride. I had a chance to tell Mary how proud the Métis Nation is of her appointment.
Chartrand, Vice President for the Métis National Council, praised the appointment and had a message for those criticizing her inability to speak French.
What if we told you don't speak our Indigenous language, you can't come to our country? How would you feel? So I think people should give her the time, and she will learn French without doubt. It's just, but Indigenous language are before French and English in this country. So.
Obed called the criticisms disheartening because Simon attended a federal day school in northern Quebec that didn't offer education in French. But for Obed and many others, today was one of hope and optimism. AFN National Chief Roseanne Archibald was in attendance but wasn't available for comment prior to broadcast. Brett Forrester, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Well, Mary Simon may be from Quebec's northern Nunavut region, but Inuit all over Canada were celebrating, and that includes Nunavut. Ken Driscoll has more.
Mary Simon's installation as Governor General was a big step for one Inuk, but it's being praised by Inuit all over Canada. Here in Nunavut, promotion of Inuit language is a priority. Carleen Ariak is the Nunavut Language Commissioner, and she was thrilled.
I was overly ecstatic. I was so excited to watch the whole thing today with the Governor General. I'm so immensely proud of her, not only for the fact that she's a strong Inuk woman, she's a very strong Canadian, and she has accomplished so much within her lifetime.
Ariak has been around Inuit politics most of her life. Her mother, Eva Ariak, is former language commissioner, former premier, and current commissioner of Nunavut. Mary Simon has been on her radar a long time.
When I was growing up, she's always been in the public life since I was growing up. And there became a point where I even asked a family member if we're related to her because she's so relatable and approachable. And that's just the character of who she is.
Check out the Atigi Ariak is wearing. That isn't a Nunavut design. That's a Nunavik design. She wore it in tribute of a Nunavik Inuk being chosen Governor General. She also thinks the exposure Inuktitut is receiving here can help Inuit long term.
She spoke in Inuktitut first. She's very proud of her language. And we even saw in the media coverage of having, I believe, 8 additional Indigenous languages that were broadcasted today, including in the Inuit language. So she's already shone a brighter light on not only the Inuit language, but Indigenous languages.
Simon faced criticism for not speaking French. In her role as language commissioner, Ariak is responsible for all 3 of Nunavut's official languages: English, French, and Inuktitut, which covers both Inuktitut and the Inuit spoken in western Nunavut. She thinks she learned something from the French-speaking complaints about Simon.
I wanted to take it as an opportunity for Nunavut to know that they do have these language rights in Nunavut, and they can receive services in the language of their choice. And if people don't feel that their language rights have been respected, they can certainly come to our office and we can ensure that their language rights are being respected. So learning from the French language community, that's how many people were passionate enough to say, hey, my language rights are not being respected. Nunavut also has this right.
Mary Simon hasn't announced when she will visit Nunavut, but she most likely will. Most of her predecessors did, including Mikhail Jean and Julie Payette. When it does happen, the difference? The Queen's representative will be speaking Inuktitut. And in Nunavut, that means something. Ken Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Time for one more quick break, but stick around. We're off to Delaney coming up. Welcome back. This summer marks 100 years since the last number treaty in Canada was signed. Communities from across the Sahtu region of the Northwest Territories are gathering to commemorate. With more, here's our reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs.
Delaney, Northwest Territories, home to roughly 500 Sahtu Dene.
In the old days, they would go down, they would have bundles and bundles of dry fish, sell and trade with.
And around Great Bear Lake, they've practiced their culture on the land and water. So folks like Sire Yukon with the Delaney Gutne government have been hard at work organizing and participating in on-the-land trips.
The goal was to get people more engaged on the land like our ancestors used to. Yeah, and to teach them about our culture. So every year since we started, we plan on going to different locations to learn about the different areas around the lake.
Delaney is marking the 100th anniversary of the signing of Treaty 11 by sending 40 paddlers on the Great Bear River from Delaney to Toledo, where treaty was signed.
To celebrate our rights as like Indigenous people. And so this year we wanted to join in with the canoes to kind of support that, you know, and especially on the canoes because it kind of comes from like our traditional ways of traveling back in the day.
The trip is also about providing learning opportunities to the next generation, like 16-year-old Kaden Nayali, one of the youngest paddlers on the trip.
I know it's something like freeing the ancestors.
How did you feel when you were asked to do that?
Kind of nervous because I don't really do stuff in a crowd.
The legacy of Treaty 11 is complex. In the summer of 1921, Canada's colonial government sent a Treaty 11 party down the Mackenzie River, where they would stop in 8 communities. The Dene were under the impression they signed an agreement for peace and friendship. In reality, it resulted in the dispossession of Indigenous lands, as the Crown staked illegitimate claim over oil reserves and restrictions imposed on traditional harvesting.
A lot of people are already looking to Delaney.
In spite of this, Chief Leroy Andre says Delaney in 2021 is celebrating resiliency.
My grandfather Andre was 19 years old when treaty was signed in Tulita. He said he was there, he witnessed everything, all the discussions that happened. So 100 years have gone by since we signed Treaty 11. We also now signed a land claim agreement. We signed a self-government agreement. So the last 100 years, you guys are representing Satut in the people, Delaney.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Delaney.
A Special Olympics athlete from Manitoba will be competing in the 2022 World Winter Games in Russia. And he's raising funds to have his mom and twin sister join him as well. Here's that story.
William Hart will be competing in Russia at the 2022 Special Olympic World Winter Games. The 18-year-old from Nelson House in northern Manitoba will be competing in alpine skiing this year, but he's also competed in past games in other sports, including swimming and figure skating. William is excited to get the chance to compete as an Aboriginal youth.
William, what did you write when you said, what did you say? That it's pretty crazy that a young youth, Aboriginal youth,
would actually go to the world, or they get such an opportunity. Not a lot of First Nation children actually get to go to like big sports like the Olympics or even the Worlds for that matter.
While athletes are guaranteed travel and accommodation to and from games, family is not. So William is doing what he can to get his mom Marlene and twin sister Jemiah to join him in Russia. He's asking for any extra air miles and is doing a Chase the Ace 50-50 draw to raise money. Marlene said if she's able to join him, it would mean the world.
Oh, that would be very important. I mean, for him to go to the Worlds, it's unbelievable in the first place. So it would really be nice to be able to watch him and cheer him on, to see him. This is a major thing. So I just think it's very important to cheer him on and be there and be emotional support for him.
Until the games begin, William is training almost daily to keep himself ready.
Awesome stuff, William. What an inspiration. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this weekend, but for much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.